Hey everybody, I know it's been a while, but I promise you, it's worth the wait. Invoke 3.0 is here. Soon is now. Today, on the video, I'm going to walk through all of the new features that are incorporated into the 3.0 version of Invoke, and I promise you, there's a lot. So grab a drink, settle in, and we'll walk through feature by feature. First things first, you'll notice that there's been a couple of UI changes in the 3.0 version. We've cleaned the interface up and made the UI even easier to use. From top to bottom, you should see that everything feels just a little bit snappier as you use it, and some intuitive, nice quality of life features exist in almost every aspect of Invoke 3.0. Just as an example, you'll notice that the general options section has been consolidated with all of the main features that users typically will change from generation to generation. You even have the option to choose a custom VAE on each run. There's also a new ratio section that allows you to control the ratio as you scale up and down, and invert your width and height easily. You'll also notice that Invoke now has a number of schedulers that weren't available in previous versions. Because there are a lot of schedulers, we also added a feature that allows you to select your favorite schedulers. Simply go to the settings page and choose your favorite schedulers. You'll notice that those schedulers show up at the top. In addition to updates on the options panel, we've also added enhancements to the gallery. You can easily unpin and move the gallery to the side when you're working. You also have a boards feature. Boards allows you to easily categorize and organize your images as you're generating them, filtering down to what you're working on, and automatically updating any new generations into the currently selected board. It's also an easy way to get rid of a bunch of images at the same time. You can simply right-click and delete board and images to delete the board and any images inside of it. Each board has two sections: images, which include your generations, and any assets that you've uploaded to use in the ControlNet process. We'll go ahead and go back to my All Images section, and we'll go through a couple of other features. As you're creating your prompt, any embeddings that you need to use will show up in an easy embedding dropdown. We've also built a dynamic model compatibility system that allows for easy tracking of which assets are compatible with the core base models that you're currently using. For example, right now I'm using the Invoke Fantasy and Art model that was created by Zovia. That's a Stable Diffusion 1 model, and so I'm only able to select my Stable Diffusion 1 embeddings. The same is true for any LoRAs that I might use, but I'll get to that in a second. A major addition in Invoke 3.0 is ControlNet. You'll be able to add multiple ControlNet layers directly into the options panel and use our compact ControlNet layer in order to easily manipulate and manage how that layer is applied to your generation. Each of the available models is listed out in the top. Again, those are also tracked with our compatibility manager, and you can easily add in new ControlNet models by dropping them into your ControlNets folder. You can manipulate the weight as well as the beginning and end step percentage, or which part of the generation process you want that ControlNet model to apply to. We have 4 ControlNet modes: balanced, prompt, which will lean more towards generating with your prompt rather than the control image, control, which is the inverse, and mega control, which I'll let you explore on your own. Lastly, each ControlNet model that you select has a default processor that'll automatically populate when you select it. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the Canny processor does. If I take one of my existing images that I've created and just drag and drop it from the gallery, the Canny pre-processing will automatically execute and show us a preview of that image. You can also expand to see a more detailed preview of the pre-processed image and manually configure processor settings in line. In this case, I think we've got a very decent Canny pre-processed image, so I'll go ahead and minimize this, and we'll go ahead and create a prompt. So we now have a new image that was controlled by the structure of our previous image and allows us to give a lot more structured information to the AI as we're generating our content. Again, you can generate images with more than one ControlNet model active at any given time, and I'll cover in a future video advanced use cases for the ControlNet feature. The next update I'll cover for Invoke 3.0 is the new LoRa's panel. The new LoRa's panel takes advantage of our compatibility checker, but instead of manipulating the prompt, you'll have an easy way to manipulate the weight of that LoRa in the UI. The next feature we'll talk about for Invoke 3.0 is the dynamic prompts feature. The dynamic prompts feature allows for you to input variables inside of your prompt. When dynamic prompts is enabled and the combinatorial generation feature is turned off, Invoke will randomly select one of the variables that you've provided in your prompt to generate each picture. If you select the combinatorial generation option, Invoke will generate each and every combination provided at least once, up to the maximum prompt setting input by the user. Let's go ahead and turn combinatorial generation off and just add a couple of variables into our prompt. So you'll notice that the structure of the prompt that I used has an open curly braces, the prompt word, a pipe character, another prompt word, and a closing curly braces. What this will do is choose one of these two words when it's generating the prompt. Similarly, I have a second variable set for soft oil painting or watercolor, and you'll notice that my prompt upweighting will actually be maintained if I use that. Again, this is a great way to add some variability into your prompt, as well as just try out a couple of combinations. So go ahead and generate 4. You'll now notice that I have 4 variations of the image with the different combinations of prompts that I put in. When dynamic prompts is used, it'll use the same seed for each generation. This allows you to ensure that the only difference between the new generations were the variables in your prompt. One additional update for Invoke 3.0 is noting where the noise is being sourced for new images. In the past, depending on what device you used, Invoke would generate noise on whatever device was available, whether that be your GPU or CPU. With Invoke 3.0, you now have the ability to control which device is generating your noise. By default, we'll use the CPU, as every device will be able to generate the same noise with that setting, and you'll be able to see better reproducibility across different installations of Invoke. However, if you want to use a seed from an old generation that was originally created on a GPU, you'll want to turn that off. Lastly, advanced users can use the advanced option in the settings panel to display clip skip. Certain models recommend settings on clip skip to produce better outputs given the way that they were trained. When you have one of these models, make sure to turn this feature on and update the clip skip setting accordingly. As part of 3.0, we're launching an experimental feature. This will be updated and enhanced based on feedback in 3.0 for our 3.1 version. But because I'm so excited about the feature, I want to share a little bit about what's coming in Invoke. Welcome to Nodes. Invoke was one of the earliest projects in this ecosystem. And in the fall of 2022, to migrate our backend to a node-based architecture. That PR sat open for a long time and took us the past 5 months to migrate to. But for many, many reasons, this is the future of Invoke. If you're a developer, this will be an easy way for you to contribute new functionality. And if you're a user, this will allow you ultimate flexibility in creating customizable generation pipelines that truly give you complete control over the output. I'll give you a brief walkthrough today, but look forward to future videos where we do a deep dive on nodes. To get started with creating a graph, I'll go ahead and add in a text to latence node. Text to latence is the core pipeline that turns a prompt or text into an image. Our backend has been updated to use latence instead of images. Latence is a colloquial term for the mathematical representation of a picture that the machine learning model generates. Rather than generate an image by default, we leave it in this raw mathematical form so that additional processing can take place on that before the image is generated. This gives you the highest quality picture asset as you're transforming and manipulating it through additional nodes. For today, we'll keep this a pretty basic graph. And so I'll go ahead and add in 2 prompt nodes. We currently use the compel library, so those prompt nodes will mention that. We'll use a model loader, and then we'll add in some noise. Lastly, we'll need a latence to image. We need to take that mathematical representation and turn that into an image at the end. And now we just need to connect our graph together. I'll make sure that both of my prompts are going into the correct spot. I've got a positive prompt and a negative prompt. I have my noise. And then I will add my UNet, which are the weights. The UNet is kind of the core representation or weights of the model. I'll take my clip model and connect that to my prompt. And I'll take my VAE and connect that to my latence to image decoding process. The last piece here is just to connect latence to latence. And now we have our core text to image graph. And once I've composed my graph, I can invoke. And my image has been generated. And what an image it is. Going back to my node editor, you'll notice that I have the ability to save my graph as well as load my graph. This is a great way to share with other users, as well as ensure that as you build out your library of workflows, you can reuse those in the future. Again, this is an experimental feature, but we're really excited about what's coming with 3.1 of Invoke, and you can expect that the UI and user experience of the graph will get even better with time. Lastly, I want to touch on our new model manager. As with previous versions of Invoke, you can easily customize and configure individual variables on models. You can also convert non-diffusers models into the diffuser format. With 3.0, you now have a simple add model mechanism. Simply provide a path to a local diffusers model, safe tensors file, or Hugging Face repo in order to download that model automatically. You can also pass in URLs to safe tensors files to have those files downloaded directly into the system. You can always manually add those as well using the Advanced tab, or scan a models directory locally to have those added by Invoke. We're super excited by Invoke 3.0. We hope you'll give it a try and share your feedback with us on Discord. Stay tuned. We have even more news coming, and I know that's pretty incredible, but we've been hard at work. Thanks again for the support. We'll see you guys soon.